Hi, good evening, Trace. Yes, LA Mayor Karen Bass was very upset that federal agents were carrying out immigration enforcement outside of the venue where Governor Gavin Newsom's press conference was held today.
There is no way this was a coincidence. This was widely publicized that the governor and many of our other elected officials were having a press conference here to talk about redistricting, and they decided they were going to come and thumb their nose in front of the governor's space. Why would you do that?
Also, Newsom heavily criticized this situation.
I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. Said everything you know about Donald Trump's America.
However, federal authorities say they were carrying out immigration enforcement as they have been doing for months under the Trump administration.
This was pre-planned, right? This was way before they knew of his event about congressional redistricting.
Absolutely. We have 40 teams on the street at a time in Los Angeles, enforcing the rule of law, getting these criminals off of it. Had nothing to do with Gavin Newsom's press conference. Absolutely ridiculous.
And it's unclear how many arrests federal agents made today at that location, Trace.
Christina, thank you.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but bullshit. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. If you know LA, okay, that was the Getty Museum where that event was. It's a lovely place, by the way. Very popular, very busy. But why, just out of nowhere, the Border Patrol decided they're going to have an enforcement event there with 20 masked men. And did you see the arrest? Yep, they caught one. This is the district chief, Greg Bovino. You guys judge for yourself. Was this a coincidence? A planned? The district chief himself is there. There's a term called peacocking. Watch.
What's fucking wrong with you? People working. Go arrest fucking criminals. What the fuck are you doing? I'm worried about this type of work.
Right behind you, brother.
You guys are fucking cowards. All of you are fucking cowards.
Watch out.
Hold on, King. Well done.
Great. Mr. Bovino from Fox 11. Can I get a quick comment?
Hey, what's going on here?
How you doing? What happened?
That we're here making Los Angeles a safer place. Since we won't have politicians that'll do that, we do that ourselves. So that's what we're here today, as you can see. Already making it a safer place. We're glad to be here, not going anywhere.
And the governor's inside right there.
I don't know where he's at.
Do you have he's about 100 feet behind us. Do you have any comment for him or anything?
Again,
any message?
We're making Los Angeles and California a safer place. We're going to continue to do that, and they can take that one to the bank and cash it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know where the governor, he's here. Who knows? The district chief just shows up with an entire detail pulling 360 security around his stupid ass. Did you notice the cameraman behind him? What horse shit, okay? Yeah, they knew the governor was there. That was the whole point. They knew Fox News was going to be there. Hey, what a surprise. Fox News is here. Who would have thought? These guys are so full of shit. And they think we fall for this bullshit. And by the way, suppose that was a strawberry vendor that they arrested. Seemed pretty calm, didn't it? The whole thing's fake. I mean, it's all propaganda. And that's what all this is about. Because the other thing going on right now is what's happening in Washington, D.C. Of course, a lot of people are stressed. They think, oh, it's martial law. It's like, this is the big thing. I've had so many wonderful people reach out to me and say, Fred, this is it, right? This is the first step in martial law. I saw a video where a guy said, this is really the process towards the night of the long knives, where Trump, like Hitler, when Hitler took out his political enemies using his stormtroopers. I'm sorry. Look, I know you guys know I'm a veteran. Please, no. Okay, just no. Okay. I know we all want to freak out. I get it. This is about Epstein. You know, it's about Epstein. 800 National Guardsmen isn't taking over the city of D.C. We had 25,000 plus 3 times that number of in Iraqi security forces at Baghdad, and I still got rocketed every day when I was there. Okay, look, they're not taking over DC, and they're not taking over DC because of clown shit like this. I'm gonna watch it. This is so to set this up. This is video that was on the internet of Georgetown. Georgetown. This is probably M Street in Georgetown, one of the most upscale parts of DC, not the most, but pretty damn close, full of shoppers, full of nightclubs and bars, restaurants. This is the approach to Georgetown University. I mean, it's nice. Now, this is what's happening in DC. Watch this clown shit.
Where did they? Reveal what?
I gotta stop it there because the guy comes out of the bar like, what the F? Okay. It goes on for a while of people sitting in chairs on cafe tables at night drinking. They did it for that video. There was 9 people in that group. Now, that's an infantry squad. They've got the size of an army infantry squad patrolling in body armor in Georgetown. It's so freaking stupid. It hurts my head, okay? It's all bull to get those videos to show how tough they are. So Pete Hegseth can say, look at me, we're tough. And then this one came out, and this is a short one. It's so comically stupid. I have to show you this brief clip. Yeah. Those are Army Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, JLTV. That was their place, the MRAP, which was the up armored vehicle we used for convoys in Iraq and Afghanistan. Those are armored vehicles, tactical vehicles at Union Station. Okay, one of the busiest places in Washington D.C. By the way, completely impossible to get taxis and Ubers in and out of there, but they're rolling JLTVs through there like they're in Baghdad, folks. Crime is bad. We agree. Deploying 800 National Guardsmen and federal forces, DEA agents didn't sign up to patrol Georgetown. Okay, FBI agents, who, by the way, majority don't even have a law enforcement background, believe it or not. Yeah, the G-men are mostly accountants, for God's sake, are walking around in body armor and masks, for God's sake, in Georgetown. This is the cosplay bullshit that has got a lot of people stressed. And look, I get it. It is stressful to see military or armed federal agents securing our cities. It's not secured. If they were worried about a crime in DC, they sure wouldn't be in Georgetown or the National Mall, where the crime isn't. Okay? That's not the point. The problem is where the crime is, there's not as many cameras. There just isn't. You know, there's no value in actually patrolling the areas of DC that are really struggling under crime still. They're really struggling with carjackings and stuff. But there's no cameras there, and you don't get the propaganda value. You don't get the Fox News clips. I mean, isn't it an amazing coincidence that in the first clip, Fox News was right there? I mean, incredible. Every other news organization was inside the venue for the governor's massive press conference, talk about redistricting, and yet Fox Local 11 was right there on the street for the whole thing. What a coincidence. Don't fall for the bullshit, folks. They want us to. And I got a great guest to talk about this. My dear friend, Patrick Murphy. Patrick is the first Iraq veteran to be elected to Congress way back in the day when Obamacare was being passed. He was a young man, 33. And then he went on from there. He actually lost his seat because of that vote in the midterms, but went on to do great things. Became the undersecretary of the Army with the #2 job in the Army. He has now led many, many prospects and many jobs, including trying to get folks elected, Democrat veterans elected in Pennsylvania. I'm thrilled to have my friend Patrick, the honorable Patrick J. Murphy, join us in the show. As always, I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. There is so much to talk about going on in the world today. We're going to have a great show, great conversation. Let's get on with it. Welcome back. I'm still Fred Wellman, host of On to Midas FBO, right here on the Midas Touch Network, sort of live. It's so good to see you guys every week. I love the fans, love the Midas Mighty. As you know, we started off talking about this crazy stuff going on in Washington D.C. and of course across the country. But as a veteran, especially, we're watching these things unfold. Many of us are watching them unfold with sort of disbelief, but also with a little bit of humor, believe it or not. And it's as I mentioned in the intro, it's 800 National Guardsmen patrolling very public places, okay? And so it's a little bit of a smoke and mirrors, hide the banana thing, right? And so I'm thrilled. Timing always works out great because I've been trying to get Patrick on the show for a couple of weeks. My friend Patrick Murphy, you know him. He was the very first Iraq war veteran elected to Congress out of Pennsylvania. Okay, and then he was the Undersecretary of the Army doing pull-ups and push-ups. That's why I can't do that job because Patrick made it hard. Look at that. Oh my God. Dude, what's happened to you? And how I watched him do the job and he's like running the troops. Like, no, I'm not doing that. So that's why I'm a civilian. Nonetheless, I had the opportunity to bring Patrick on the show. Patrick, good to see you, brother. Welcome back to the show.
Fred, great to be back on with you. I always bust your chops because I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division, the best airborne division in the world. You were, though, a great James Nelson, the 101st Airborne air assault. But although I know I joke with you about that because my uncle Billy Rapone was 101st in Vietnam. So thank you for your.
Screaming Eagles, man. It's great that you're in that second class unit. I'm glad you still have pride in a unit that wasn't the 101st. I kind of opened it with some clips of the stuff going on in DC and how some people are very excited about it. This is martial law. This is the sort of end. But in the end, as I pointed out, you served, you were National Guard, weren't you, for a while there too? I don't know if you did or not, but it's 800 troops. I mean, is it martial law in DC in your eyes as a guy who was Undersecretary of the Army?
Yeah, it is not. In fact, I wish they would have called, President Trump would have called the National Guard on January 6th. And he didn't then. And that was, over 4 years ago. So he absolutely positively has the authority to do it. And what I do think is that there is a reason why, Fred, he has the DEA agents walking the National Mall. The National Mall is incredibly secure with the Department of Interior, et cetera. There's not real crime. It is performative. That he wants us to get wrapped around the axle around 800, which is basically battalion troops, in DC, because he doesn't want us to talk about releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files. He doesn't want us to talk about the big, beautiful bill that's going to add $4 trillion to national debt. He doesn't want us to talk about the tariffs, which are basically taxes that we're all going to have to pay for. So,
yeah,
do not take the bait. I know I'm speaking to the choir a little bit, but as someone who taught constitutional law, who's someone who truly believes in supporting and defending the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, we cannot get distracted on what's going to affect our everyday families, our democratic values. It's not the National Mall. He's not calling them into, cities of Philadelphia and New York City. It's DC where he has even more authority because of federal law.
Yeah, and as I said in the intro, it's like, I think I was on a show the other day with some dear friends who were veterans, and we actually looked it up at the time, and after January 6th, of course, long after, as they prepared for President Biden's inauguration, they called in 28,000 troops, and the entire city wasn't taken over then. I mean, if 28,500 troops can essentially secure the National Mall, the approaches to DC and the Capitol, 800 aren't controlling the city of Washington D.C. It is meant as a publicity stunt, And you've done, what caught my eye immediately, Patrick, was the fact they had the guys pull their Humvees up on 14th Street, right there from the Washington line. Now, D.C., that's the busiest entryway in D.C. from Virginia, and they did it during rush hour. The whole point was for the news cameras. The whole point was for people with their iPhones to film it, right? And express the propaganda. And that, in many ways, it's propaganda, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what Democrats got to be, like a bulldog on a bone, not to go off the scent here. Because, again, even me, my knee-jerk reaction was like, I thought the crime rate went down 35%, the murder rate's down, like all that. And it's true. But that means that we're not, that means we're talking about this, we're arguing about what he's doing, when it is what it is, right? I mean,
right.
There should be less crime. I mean, the most solemn duty of a government is to keep our family safe. Now, again, I also got the memes that the crime rate's going up in DC because who occupies the White House. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to be like a jerk because I'm trying to be respectful of the office. But at the end of the day, it's hard when he promised one thing that came in, oh yeah, we're gonna release the Jeffrey Epstein files on Fox News, and then doesn't do it, right? And then they break from Congress because the House was gonna get them. There was, a motion to discharge. I mean, it was gonna happen, and they had to pop the emergency brake to say, parachute out of here because, we're gonna get caught red-handed. And by the way, there's gonna be Democrats that are gonna get jammed up on it too. I don't care. Because if you do that to Yarlin, if you do that, they deserve to be in jail. What I don't like to see is people in power trying to, get us off the scent on what's really going on, and what's really going on is not good.
Yeah, and that's the real deal. We've got real big issue. This is an issue. Look, and as I say a lot too, people say, "Well, it's a distraction." Well, everything's a distraction, but there's enough of us that can focus on each one, right? There's 213 members of Congress in the House alone. There's another 43 or something, and 47 in the Senate. That there's plenty of things to focus on, and not everything's meant to be distraction. But in many ways, you're right. This is distracting from Epstein, and it is meant to make us scared. And I love you touched on something very beginning of your answer there about the fact that it's like the gerrymandering in Texas or the redistricting. It's not about gerrymandering. It's about redistricting in the middle of a decade. This isn't about crime in D.C. It's about trying to scare us into believing there's a problem. It is the tool. It's like arguing over the shovel instead of the hole being built. The tool of distraction is the troops. So taking that and that segues nice into what we were going to talk about originally when I first connected this week is, big put, and there's been a lot of stories written. The Washington Post is a story about how there's a big push among the Democrats to get more veterans like you and I to run for a higher office, to run for Congress. They think there's some winners there. You were the first Iraq veteran to run for Congress and win, and then went on to greater things since then. What do you tell me about what's your thought as Democrats do that? Is there something? Is it a good strategy? Do you think there's value there? I know you've recruited veterans to run for Congress before. What's your initial thought?
Yeah, my thoughts are we are really at a reflection point in our country, because 40 years ago, Fred, of every 5 members of Congress, 4 were veterans. Now that's the 1 out of every 5. And again, I don't think it should be prerequisite, but we do need people to go there that understand what public service is all about, whether they were teachers, cops, firefighters, or in the military. And these type of public servants tend to put the country first and understand they are there to work for the American people, not for the political party, not for the wealthy, not for the donors, but for the 700,000 people and the families they represent. And I think we've gotten away from that. And I think you see it in policy, you see it in the tax structure, you see it in another $4 trillion for national debt. It is wrong. It's immoral. I look at my daughter. I dropped her off at Clemson University this week, right? And she's doing Air Force ROTC. And to me, like, I want to be embarrassed. Like, I'm sorry that we're now going to be over $40 trillion in debt. That means that every single one of us owes over $100,000 to it. The fact that we have to pay $1 trillion a year just to pay the interest off of that $40 trillion, it is immoral. And Democrats, we don't do a good job at talking about it and saying that big, beautiful bill was horrible. It's going to make these tax breaks for the wealthiest 1% are going to be paid for by our kids. You don't do that. You make it better for them, not worse. You don't rack up the credit card just because you want to take care of your cronies that got you elected again.
And that's what drives me crazy. There is really an affordability crisis. There's no question about it. For me, I've been slapped in the forehead a lot lately. I've got my youngest son is no longer in the field, but when he was a full-time bartender, he was a full-time bartender for a while on a very popular restaurant chain in Richmond, Virginia. And a couple of years ago, we went to get him healthcare, and we put the paperwork in during the open window, and he qualified for Medicaid as a full-time professional school trained bartender in a high-end restaurant, right? And for me, and you, I know you get it too, because you're a former soldier. I was a young soldier. I was a captain at, say, I think 27, whatever it was. I was a young captain at 27. I already had a couple of 3 kids. I had a house in Clarksville, Tennessee. You know what I mean? I mean, we had opportunity, and I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, are we at an inflection point? And for me as a soldier, especially, where I didn't do my job. I didn't hand off a better life to the next generation. And I think for me, for those of us who serve, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but it feels like as I talk to my fellow veterans, especially, I have like a circle. I bet you the same circle that hangs out drinking beer every Thursday night or whatever. And when we're looking at each other like, what the hell have we done? Right? Have we done enough? I mean, do you think that drives more of our peers or veterans to serve even more?
No doubt. And that's why throughout the years, I mean, listen, I just thought about dropping my daughter for Clemson as a freshman. She was born 3 weeks after I first won my race, right? My first race for U.S. Congress. So,
Oh my goodness.
I look at that. And then when we got there, we passed things like the minimum wage. I'm embarrassed that it was 18 years ago, like that we passed the increase the minimum wage, and it hasn't been touched yet. I mean, it's embarrassing, right? And the knee-jerk reaction of, well, it's for young kids. Most people on minimum wage are like single moms. Like, stop.
Right.
This is like immoral that we're doing this. And then the second part of that is I do think, since I served in Congress and then helped lead the Army, I have supported people like Pat Ryan, who's awesome. People like Chris Deluzzi, that from Pittsburgh, who's awesome. Alyssa Slotkin, Tammy Duckworth. And then this generation, Fred, if the one thing I would say to you is, and I'm not, and I feel bad because I'm preaching to you, but like, if you're listening to this, don't just bitch and write letters to the editor and blog and like, get after it. Like, I'm supporting Kennedy Democrats, one of my PACs in Pennsylvania, two phenomenal Army veterans. Both are running for sheriff, one in Delaware County. His name is Sadiq Kamara, like an immigrant to this country, served in the Army, now running for sheriff. And then in Bucks County, which is a super purple, more red, someone who, is standing with Donald Trump, the current sheriff, against Army veteran, Afghan war veteran named Danny Seisler. And I think both Sadiq and Danny are going to win this race. And this is 2025. You can't take these elections off. Why? When you send the message, you win these races in 2025. That sets us up for 2026, which then sets us up for 2028, right? So, the people who are, the Democratic, the approval rating is the two. Yeah, you know why? Because we just lost. And when people lost, people don't have backbone like you and I. People who are non-veterans or say, oh, well, I'm going to take my toys and go home. Good.
No.
Was that how much you love your country? Because it's, we in the military, we call that a sunshine soldier. Right?
Sunshine patriot.
You only fight when it's easy. As you know, in these airborne infantry units, we joke that if it ain't raining, we ain't training. Well, as Democrats, get some backbone, fight back, help us get some independents, some modern Republicans to put this country back in the right track, because we sure as hell know it's not.
Starting a business is very hard. You're going through everything with like finding out your logo, building your website, getting your point of sale set up, your inventory, supply chains these days. Don't get me started about that. When my family started a business 12 years ago in a small town in Virginia, that was one of the big challenges we had. How do we find a point of sale that works? How do we run an online store? How does it all integrate with our social media channels and everything else? And we were just glad we finally found a partner that works so well for us. And that's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is a commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's 10% of all e-commerce just in the US alone, from household names that like Mattel and Gymshark, to brands just getting started, or brands you should know like Sugar and Spruce in Fredericksburg, Virginia. You can get started your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. Now, you accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography for you. You can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns whenever your customers are scrolling or strolling, and it integrates directly into your point of sale system. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. So that's where we come in. Turn your big business idea into... That's right. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Fred. That's go to shopify.com/Fred. One more time for those at home, shopify.com/Fred. You can start your business now and grow it successfully. And that's so true, right? I think for what I talk about a lot, I was actually talking to a friend this morning, I was walking, is representative for a congressional race is in the damn title of that job, right? Just like commanders in the title of your job in many, if you're a command of a company or a battalion or even a platoon, it's commander, right? And so often it feels like so many of our elected representatives right now forgot the part of representative, right? They forgot the part of representative. And we have seen stars. You rattle off a list of them. Tammy Duckworth has actually just visited our district, Missouri District 2, where our representative, I say that sarcastically, has not held a town hall in 13 years. She seems to meet with bankers more than anybody else as she sits in the finance committee and makes millions of dollars. She's forgotten the part of the job that's representative. But then you see something like Tammy Duckworth, who's not even from Missouri, but comes across the river to come see us and answered, sat there with 45 minutes answering the questions of our constituents in our district. That is service to the nation in a whole different manner, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, when I was there in Congress, again, I was 33, wrote the bill that repealed the National Hotel, was there as a co-sponsor for Obamacare. I had town halls. That people they were shipping from all over Pennsylvania and elsewhere. They would come in, death threats, etc. I still did them. You know why? Because I said, listen, I represent 700,000 people. I'm not going to ask them for their ID. They're Americans before they come in, right? I'm going to ask them to be respectful. They try to shoot me down or shot me down and, try to intimidate me. I was like, hey, buddy, I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. You're not going to intimidate me. And I'm like, and they're like, well, you're going to have death panels. There's going to be people die from Obamacare. I'm like, first off, that's not true. And they were like, you're going to give free healthcare to illegal immigrants. I'm like, that's not also true. I go, it's in the bill. I go, just because they interrupted Barack Obama in the State Union address saying that did not make it true. In fact, we proved it's not true. I go, and let me tell you, I have a copy of the bill here. Let me show you. Whereas I'm going to go,
what's actually in it?
Yeah, interact with the people that were my bosses, right? To say, I'm representing you. You might disagree with me, but let me tell you something. You know where I stand. And, you want to talk about, the Midwest, you want to talk about Missouri. One of my favorite quotes from President Lincoln. He said, leadership isn't taking people where they want to be. Leadership is taking people where they ought to be. And, we should have Obamacare where you're covered until age 26 and that you can't have to pay more because you're a woman of childbearing age, that they can discriminate you because you have a pre-existing condition, right? And they're chipping away at it. And it takes patriots like you and me and these listeners to say, I'm going to be part of the solution. I am going to stand here and fight for our democracy because that's our duty as Americans to give it to our kids in better shape than it is today.
That sums it up perfect. And that's exactly what it is, right? It is. And that is probably one of our frustrations. I think you and I had these conversations about some of our peers. And let's be honest, in the Democratic Party, too often, especially the consultant class, which we both dealt with, let's be honest, they're much more like, oh, where the wind's blowing, let's follow that. Like, a favorite example is I was in a meeting right after the election. And it was a group of professionals. I won't name any names, and they're good people. And we were discussing the deployment of troops, back to the troops again, deploying troops like specifically active duty Marines to the border. And if you remember, again, back to begin this conversation, filming remember they filmed the Ospreys landing at the border. Oddly, there was always a camera for everything, right? And I said, eventually one of those Ospreys is going to hit a tree or a striker is going to roll down a hill. And we're going to have troops get hurt. And we had a car accident not long after that. And I said, look, we're going to have to be ready to talk about that our men and our sons and daughters is how I refer to them. I know you do too, that our sons and daughters are sitting, baking in the heat in the border for a stunt and they're paying with their lives. And a colleague, a smart guy, a young guy said, Fred, I don't know if we want to touch that because, he's polling pretty good on the immigration, that a lot of people like this. And I said, okay, so it's our job to change that. I'm not going to give it. I'm not ceding that ground. I mean, obviously we do have problems with immigration. The system's broken. It takes 20 years to do it right. But look where we are 8 months later, and they are doing terrible things. They're having judges dismiss asylum cases and scooping the people up right there. The people doing it right. And so now guess what? 9 months later, he's underwater on immigration by 25 points. And I look at my peers within the professional class, especially like, no, let's stop following the polls. Let's start leading the polls, right? That's what leaders do, don't they?
Right. Absolutely. And that's why, I gave it a Lincoln quote because, for me, and again, this is for a broader audience than just veterans, but
sure.
So you got to remind the American people, like, listen, we got 18 million American veterans. Do you know about 1 million of those were not born in our country? So they served, if you look at all the states and Puerto Rico has more capita Medal of Honor recipients, the highest award you can get for bravery and dedication and putting your life on the line from that state than any other state, right? And so
right.
and it just boggles my mind is, listen, you could say we need secure borders. It's a national security thing. You could say, hey, if you come over here undocumented and you commit crimes, yeah, we're going to send you back, right? But let's work together and let's tackle these things and get after it. You can't just say, well, I don't want to talk about it, right? Especially because, you have other folks that, whether it's hits them or not, they now know and they see that there's these raids at the Home Depots of people who are just trying to work and go landscape. They're trying to sit there and clean houses. And, and they're like, whoa, I didn't think that's what it meant. I was like, we tried to tell you, look at Proposition 25, this is what they're doing. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, why did
All immigration.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's funny you say that because so many of us serve these soldiers, right? One of my crew chiefs in Desert Storm, OH-58 crew chief, was a Mexican, a young man from Mexico. And I believe he was the child of undocumented immigrants. When we got back, he asked me to sponsor him for his citizenship. We got him his citizenship. That son of a gun then commissioned as a warrant officer in the United States Army.
That's awesome.
Ended up being a pilot. He went all the way to CW4, Chief Warrant Officer 4, retired, and now he's a pilot for Southwest Airlines.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
Started off as an undocumented immigrant in Desert Storm,
Right.
and that's the story, isn't it?
Yeah. And you can't be afraid to tell the stories of your brothers and sisters and be proud about it and stop trying to say, oh, we can't talk about it because the polling doesn't look good. Talk about it. Listen, Obamacare wasn't, peaches and cream when we're getting it through. But I said to myself, hey, my kids are going to read about their daddy when they go to college and get older. And I want them to be proud of what I stood for when it wasn't easy. That I lost my, reelection.
And you lost your seat. And I want to make that point clear. We don't talk about that enough, Pat. You did lose your seat. And because you did the right thing. And it was that midterm was tough that year. That cycle was tough. And you did lose your seat. But you're right. You hold your head high because that is an icon of American history now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I look at it like, listen, I really believe this. I was at church. I'm a devout Catholic, right? I was at church on Sunday before the election. I never would ask God, hey, can I win the election Tuesday? I would say, God, you have a plan. I'm working my tail off. However it turns out, I'm going to be okay about it, right? Because I also know that Judgment Day is more important than re-elections. And too many people in Washington, D.C. have no moral courage. Too many people in Washington, D.C. go along to get along or get along to go along, right? And it's the American people see it. They want leadership and they want both sides come together when we can to say, hey, we're moving the ball forward. Hey, we're going to take a stand on this national debt. Hey, we're going to take a stand on this big, beautiful bill that's basically tariffs, which are basically a tax on American families, whether they're buying a car or buying things from Brazil. I mean, I just looked at, Starbucks this morning. Starbucks, if you don't know, 50% of their coffee beans come from Brazil. Well, we just implemented a 50% tariff on the beans that they buy. About 20% of their coffee beans come from Colombia. Colombia gets
Trump's mad.
Right. Colombia gets 10% tariff. Brazil gets a 50% tariff, right? And by the way, we're going to tariff India, one of the largest democracies, the largest democracy in the entire world, over 1 billion people. And yet we gave China another 3 months to figure out. It's like, buddy, as you know, man, when we used to go to rifle range, it was ready, aim, fire. With this administration, time and time again, it's fire, aim, ready. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Ready never shows up. They just go. And it's ridiculous. Again, back to the topic at the beginning, deploying the military because big balls got beat up by some teenagers in an alley at 2 a.m. Okay. That they're trying to spin wasn't suspicious at all. It is ridiculous. Whereas 150 cops go to the hospital, and that's not a cause for the National Guard. And going back to something you are doing, you did touch on it briefly. You are working hard with the Kennedy Dams, called the Kennedy Dams in Pennsylvania. Tell our audience more about what Kennedy Dams are and what you're doing in Pennsylvania.
Listen, James Carville once said about Pennsylvania, Philadelphia in the east, Pittsburgh in the west, and then a state of Alabama in the middle, right? And I
live in Missouri, my friend.
But, and so we're up and Democrats win outside of Philly and Pittsburgh, right? And so we supported folks. We now have, phenomenal governor, Josh Shapiro. We have a phenomenal speaker of the House, Joanna McClintock. And again, we're helping, I had a Navy vet, Brian Monroe from Bucks County, and they swift boated him, right? And we were there that's Kenny Democrats. We had a press conference. He won by a couple, points, right? And so, and again, this is in a district that Donald Trump won. So that's why we're supporting people like Danny Seisler and Sadiq Kamar and others. So I would tell people, if you want to check us out, it's on my website, or kennydemocrats.org.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, kennydemocratspa.org. But also, that's this election, Fred, right? And then I would say next year, we have phenomenal candidates. Yes, we have to get people like Pat Ryan reelected and Chris DeLuzio, but the next wave of veterans, people like Mara Sullivan in New Hampshire, that's just happy to see. He's running for Senate. It's a tough one to hold. We have people like Rebecca Bennett in New Jersey 7. She's phenomenal. Naval Academy graduate. You and I are showing we're bipartisan, not just Army. She's a Navy veteran. She's graduate of work the school. Yeah. But like, these are the folks we got to support now. We can't wait till 2028 and the present. Listen, this Congress doesn't act like it, but they're a co-equal branch of government. I mean, they bend the knee to this guy, but we need leaders who aren't going to bend the knee, whether it's a Democrat or Republican in the White House. We need folks going to do what's right for the Constitution and for our families.
Yeah, and stand up and fight and understand the moral. I think even more for me, and you touched on it again earlier too, and pulling from that is understanding the moral compass that needs to be followed regardless of what the reelection is. I think too many of these guys and girls get up there and it's the next race, it's the next election, it's the reelection. It's you have to be willing to sacrifice that to make sure the right thing's being done for our country. And too many people are getting awfully comfortable up there for awfully too long. And that goes to also, and I can't let you go without talking about the incredible work you do also with our service members transitioning in the military. Of course, you're with the Chamber of Commerce for a long time and you're doing your own work. And is that still a challenge as we see service members leaving? And I'm not sure if more are leaving lately. I suspect the reenlistment numbers. I am suspicious of the reenlistment numbers. That isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? They always talk about recruitment numbers, but I haven't seen a single story about reenlistment numbers in 9 months. Weird, right? Or 8 months. I mean, it's the things they don't announce, right? And so if reenlistment numbers aren't good, I always call that the canary in the coal mine. It means that people are walking with their feet or voting with their feet. That also means more of our service members and sons and daughters are going to need jobs and transitions out of service. We did just hear a story. I don't know if you saw, Patrick, where the Secretary of the Army signed a memo waiving mental health exams for service members being chaptered out on a chapter, a 10, 13, 14. Bad conduct type discharges. And now they're not. So these service members who possibly have undiagnosed PTSD, possibly have an unreported sexual assault in their history, are not going to get mental health exams. So now we've got sort of you and I as professional veterans advocates, because that's how we met. For those who don't know, I used to be a professional veterans advocate before I got into politics. Although you could argue they're the same thing, except it was more nonprofit. That's how we hung out quite a bit back in the day. Are we seeing a surge, and are they still face the same kind of challenges?
We're still facing the same challenges. So on the political side of the veteran coin, most veterans, as you know, are independents. And most of those veterans can't vote in primary elections. So if you're independent, I do think we should have semi-open primaries where if you're independent, you should be able to vote in either Democrat or Republican primary. If you're Republican, not in a Democrat, or Democrat, not Republican, but it's wrong. Number two, there's about 200,000 that transition every year of active troops. I mean, active means active duty, reserve, and National Guard, and military spouses. So these are the pain points, though, Fred. We have a 24% unemployment rate with military spouses. When most American families are dual income families, 24% of military spouses who are looking for work and can't get it because you have to move every 2, 3, 4 years. We got to do better. It's not a whole government approach.
And that goes to reenlistment. For those who understand, that goes to reenlistment. There's a saying in the military: I recruit the individual, I retain the family. So the reason we worry about military spouse unemployment, for civilians who don't understand, I try to explain these things to our wonderful audience that may not have served, but I know it sounds weird that we're worried about military spouses not having jobs, but if you, in this day and age, going back to the affordability crisis, yes, our military is affected by that. Many are unfortunately on SNAP. But if a military spouse can't get a job, if she's in Japan, if she's in Hawaii, Italy, the service member who we desperately need, who we've spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars training, if he's a pilot, they're going to leave, right? So this is a retention issue for that. It's a national security issue, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah, no doubt. And we got to do a better job. And most veterans, by the way, as you know, I was there and I thought that special responsibility is the first and only Iraq War Veteran Congress at the time, to co-sponsor with my then roommate, Tim Walls, the post 9/11 GI Bill. I mean, people forget at the time, it was a 16% unemployment rate with military veterans. Now,
I remember.
now it's 3%, and it's good. But when you look at like, we have this ethic that we leave no one behind, and of the 200,000 that transition every year, at some point, a lot of those veterans, in fact, 58% of those veterans will be unemployed at some point, right? And so that's why I partner as an ambassador with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Hiring Our Heroes. We do these career fairs. Last week, I was at what's called Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey, 450 veterans, 60 plus employers. Next week, I'm at the American Legion Convention in Tampa, another hiring event, letting people know why it's important. And the last thing I would say to you, Fred, I'm a big, I teach at a Wharton Business School. I'm an entrepreneur myself. Of the World War II generation, the greatest generation, half those veterans came back and they started their own small business. They created companies like Walmart and Comcast and
FedEx.
Eventually FedEx and Enterprise Car Rental and Wendy's Restaurants, etc. Our generation, it's less than 5%. So, I invest as a venture capitalist on veteran companies, over 250 million. We've invested in over 200 companies. Most of them, 80% of them are veteran run. But also, I let people know, I have a podcast called Warrior Money on Yahoo Finance. So people can check it out on YouTube, etc. But, we walk people through on how you can better leverage the GI Bill, how you can better leverage VA home loan, which is a phenomenal way, because when you look at wealth building in America, people's number one asset is really their home. I mean, you talked about your home in Clarksville, right? But that's something that it helps them, enter and stay in the middle class, and they can use it for the benefit, as long as they're doing that smart in the right way. Because, as you know, under the VA home loan, you don't have to put the 20% down. And so it's just a great opportunity for folks to become entrepreneurs, to either flip the house, Airbnb it, or rent it out. And for some it works, and for some it's not the right time. But we try to walk people through this and why the entrepreneur aspect of it is so important.
I love it. Well, you're doing good work, my friend. You're in a lot of places. So I always tell people, when you have Patrick on, you got to be prepared to talk about 9 things, because he's the busiest man, businessman in the business. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your hard work. It continues to this day. I've said it for over a decade and a half, how hard you work, and I brought you. People can find you at patrickmurphy.com, correct? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, patrickmurphy.com, or online, or, on socials at Patrick Murphy PA. And for part of that is because, listen, I'm not in politics anymore, in the sense that I'm not elected office anymore, but I do fight the good fight on Fox News and Fox Business, and then that might show Yahoo Finance. But to me, like, God gave me talent and gave me that responsibility to serve in Congress for 2 terms, for 4 years, then help go lead the Army. And it's easy for me to sit home like, politics. It's like, I believe in political public service. It is really an honorable profession if we get honorable people in there. And that's why, for your listeners, to back these candidates like Maura Sullivan in New Hampshire, or Rebecca Bennett in New Jersey, right? They're phenomenal. But also, don't necessarily always wait until 2026. We have people like Danny Seister and Shanique Kamar in Pennsylvania that really, really need your help. And you can do it through Kenny Democrats or the other PACs that are out there. So, Fred,
our friend Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, Abigail Famberger in Virginia. We got races right now, folks. It's an election year.
Right. Absolutely. And neither one of those races, they're going to tighten up, right? But, I feel good about those 2 governors. And then we have, obviously, other governors that are just kicking ass and taking names, people like Wes Moore and Josh Shapiro. And they need reinforcements like Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Famberger. So, to me, it's like really, really important for all of us to, support these great Americans that are putting their name on the ballot, and encourage political public service, because it is truly an honorable profession.
Well, you make it. I really appreciate it, man. This is fantastic. It's great talking to you. Thanks for finding time for us. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Everybody can find you wherever they are, and we'll keep it up the fight, man. We'll be in touch. There's a lot going on. I got a feeling I'll be talking to you soon.
Listen, if you're in 82nd, you still have these guns, buddy, but you're in honor first.
Jesus, guys. No, I'm in honor first. I got 2 fake knees, a bad back. Yeah, don't get started with my ass. 22 years, brother. Good seeing you, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Cheers. Oh man, I love talking to my friend Patrick. It's as you can tell, I think we give each other more trouble. We actually give each other more politics talk. So really appreciate it. But look, he said something really important at the end there. And I want to always pile on, as you know I do. You're sick of hearing it. There's not a political campaign in the entire world that doesn't need your help, and it's more than money. Okay, if you got the ability to get out there and knock doors, phone bank, send postcards. You can't call your local political campaign and them turn you down to be a volunteer. And by the way, if they do, send them to me because I'm going to chew their ass. Okay. There isn't a political campaign on earth that doesn't need your help in some way, be it whatever you can provide. Not all of us have money in these tight times. I totally get it. It's a tough time for affordability, but you can give them your blood and your sweat and your tears and put the effort in, because, in the end, go out, talk to your neighbors about a run. It really matters. So Patrick says it right. It is an election year, folks. I've been saying it since last year. Okay. 2025 is an election year. It is your time to get in the fight, no matter where you are. If you're in Oregon, you can write postcards for Virginia. Certainly can for Pennsylvania. So get in the fight, folks. As always, we appreciate you being here. We've been live here. I appreciate spread the word. If you can share this, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. As always, the Midas Mighty, we love you. Be sure to catch us on the On Democracy channel on YouTube, wherever you find us on all the socials. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to go on over real quick and sign up for our Substack. It's free. I do my writing there. I've been doing some lives a lot lately, doing a lot of video interviews. Love you to catch us on fpwallman.substack.com. It's where everything is. You'll find all the stuff there. So we'd love to see you there. In the meantime, I am Fred Wellman. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you again, folks. Keep in the fight. Thanks.